Okay, it says I am live. So, hello everybody. I see two people are here and welcome. Oh, that light shade. Let me do that a little bit. There we go. It's not straight, but it's covering the light. if if you are coming in on YouTube, as they used to say on the old game show, what's my line? I couldn't think of the name of it. Come in and sign in, please. So, if you are someone who will chat with us. All right, Wendy Wade. Hello, how are you, Wendy? So good to have you. We'll wait a little bit and let a few get here. Shonda, so good to have you here too. And Drew Zaster. Emily is listening via the next room. Anna is here. All right. So good to have this many. I know my number is not right because it's saying one and there are four here. Okay. Emily is here via computer as well as in the very next room from me. So good to see everybody. We'll give a few others a chance to come. And while we're doing that, why don't you turn to Hebrews chapter 11 and Genesis chapter 25. Rhonda is here. Hey, Rob, I'm here. Yay. Okay. Good to see you, Rhonda. So good to see you. And everybody that's here. Oh, okay. Well, hey, this is good if she didn't share. I know middle of the week, sometimes we forget it's Wednesday these days. Yeah, all right. Again, turn to Hebrews chapter 11, and we're going to stay very short in that chapter, but we need to go back to Genesis chapter 25 for today's incident that we're going to study. And let me say this, I want to address something. When I say a story, there are some people all of a sudden who take issue with the term Bible story. Story does not mean something did not happen. There's the term true story. We even watch movies that they say based on a true story. That means that a true story is something that really happened. So when I say Bible story, we all know from the context that I'm not talking about something that didn't happen. So we're going to talk about the story of Isaac when he is older and he married Rebecca. And then later he blessed Jacob and then Esau. So looks like we've got a good crowd here and got a good crowd in the section that shows me how many people are here. Ooh, that's even going up. Very good. So good to have you. Good to be here with you. And why don't we begin with the word of prayer? Our Father in heaven, thank you for letting us come and worship or learn about your word and to be here with you and know that we can approach you through prayer, that you've approached us through your word. And Father, we pray that we take these things and use them in our everyday lives. And in Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Okay, I want to go to Hebrews chapter 11 right now. So I'm going to leave the chat room on my screen and go to the biblical book of Hebrews. And I'm only going to look at one verse tonight. One verse, and that is verse 20. By faith, Isaac blessed Jacob and Esau concerning things to come. That one verse with just, let me count them, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 words is a whole story back in Genesis. So what we're going to have to do now to get this, by faith, Isaac blessed Jacob and Esau concerning things to come. We're going to have to go to chapter 25 of Genesis first. And during this time, what we have here is Sarah has passed away. Abraham married again. And the top of chapter 25, he married Keturah. And after this, we have Abraham's death. Isaac and Ishmael came together, cooperated with each other, and buried their father in the cave of Machpelah. And they got together and buried him. And we see the families of Ishmael and Isaac. And I want to start with verse 19. Let's just start at verse 19 in Genesis chapter 25. Genesis 25, verse 19 is where I am. And I got a message from Cookie saying she's watching on TV. Good to have you with us always. So let's go to Genesis chapter 25. I'm going to read a few verses from verse 19 following. This is the genealogy of Isaac, Abraham's son. Abraham begot Isaac. Isaac was 40 years old when he took Rebekah as wife, the daughter of Bethuel, the Syrian of Padan Aram, the sister of Laban the Syrian. Now Isaac pleaded with the Lord for his wife because she was barren, and the Lord granted his plea, and Rebekah his wife conceived. But the children struggled together within her, and she said, "If all is well, why am I like this?" So she went to inquire of the Lord. And the Lord said to her, "Two nations are in your womb. Two peoples shall be separated from your body. One people shall be stronger than the other, and the older shall serve the younger." So when her days were fulfilled for her to give birth, indeed there were twins in her womb, and the first came out red. He was like a hairy garment all over. So they called his name Esau. Afterward, his brother came out, and his hand took hold of Esau's heel, so his name was called Jacob. Isaac was 60 years old when she bore them. So I'm going to stop right here in the story, and I want to ask you a question and see if we can discuss this. Now, last week, we had some very good answers on how the sacrifice of Isaac was like the sacrifice of Jesus Christ. And I want to do, it won't be nearly as long. In fact, one or two answers, uh, I'm going to guess, is all we get because the similarities are not as much there given in Scripture as there is with Isaac and Jesus. But a lot of people compare Rebekah to the church. Why do you think Rebekah may be compared? And I want you to, if you're at home and your family's turning, talk about this. And if you are where you can type in, why do you think Rebekah is often compared to the church, or maybe we could say a type of the church, a foreshadowing, a very close comparison? Why would people think that Rebekah would be a close comparison to the church? So this is a good thinking question. I want to see what you come up with, what we can come up with as a group. Why would people say, and this is our question, why would people say that Rebekah is like the church or type of the church? So I'm going to see if we get any answers on this, discuss it with your family. Very good. Okay. All right. So, ESG, Emily, she's got the good answer. The bride. The church is the bride of Christ. Rebekah was the bride of Isaac. And remember, Isaac was the one who was such a comparison to Jesus that his bride, of course, would be something comparable to the church because the church is the bride of Christ. Now, there's another comparison that people make, and that is this. When you look at Rebekah, And while she is expecting the twins, she has the two boys with each other, struggling together with each other, almost as if the babies inside her are fighting each other. And so she asked the Lord, why about all this? If everything's okay, why am I like this? And the Lord tells her about Jacob and Esau, that the younger would be over the older. And people compare this to the church in that within the church, you have the exact situation that Jesus explained in the parable of the tares, where a farmer sows his field, and in his sowing of the field, he uh, or some of his workers rather notice that the wheat is growing along some tares. And the farmer says that an enemy has done this. And so they wait, and this is Matthew chapter 13, by the way, verse 24 following. They wait and they say, what do you want us to pull it out now? He says, no, wait. They wait and they pull them and they divide out of the field the tares, which represent the wicked. And some people say that Rebecca is like the church in that even out from the church, as Esau was in Rebecca, the wicked represented by Esau are even in the church and are the tares and will be separated from the true wheat on the day of judgment. There's another comparison that people make with Rebecca and the church. So let's go on to what happened to Rebecca and to the twins, because in verse 27 we see the boys growing up. So let's read in Genesis, and I'm in chapter 25, and we are in verse 27. So the boys grew, and Esau was a skillful hunter, a man of the field, but Jacob was a mild man dwelling in tents. And Isaac loved Esau because he ate of his game, but Rebekah loved Jacob. Now let's just stop right here. Here we have what they grew up to be. They're very different. Even in this day and time where most people would be outside and inside was a tent, Jacob was an inside person, even though inside back then was a tent. He was a mild man, and Esau was a wild man, so to speak, a skillful hunter. And by the way, looking at their very names, Esau, which itself has a meaning which is literally hairy, and Jacob, which also has a literal meaning of supplanter or deceitful, one who takes the heel. Their names mean what they were. And they did that back then. But with their names, we see them growing up to be two different types of people. Esau was always outdoors. Not only was he a hunter, he was skillful. He was good at it. He was the man of the field. Jacob was a mild man. He dwelled in tents. Now, in verses 29 following, we see something very foolish that Esau does, and we see a little bit of Esau's character. And let's read this 29 to the end of the chapter. Genesis 25, verse 29 following. Now, Jacob cooked a stew, and Esau came in from the field, and he was weary. And Esau said to Jacob, please feed me with that same red stew, for I am weary. Therefore his name was called Edom. Now, we know that Edom means red, and the Edomites are the descendants of Esau. But reading on, verse 31, but Jacob said, sell me your birthright as of this day. And Esau said, look, I'm about to die. So what is this birthright to me? Then Jacob said, swear to me as of this day. So he swore to him and sold his birthright to Jacob. And Jacob gave Esau bread and stew of lentils. Then he ate and drank, arose, and went on his way. Thus Esau despised his birthright. Now, one small sin can lead to so many bigger ones. When we look at this going on with the two boys, the next chapter is the story in chapter 26. It goes to Isaac. And let me say this, even with the marriage of Abraham and Keturah, there are many scholars who believed all of this might not be in perfect chronological order, and that on purpose. But sometimes the Bible is written that way. Some believe that Keturah was a concubine and was taken to be Abraham's wife even before Sarah died. And that's possible, he took Hagar. But looking at this, what happens between Isaac and Abimelech, is you could see how it could easily be a backtrack from what happens between Jacob and Esau, and could easily be something going on at the same time. But what I want to say is this: it is possible that it went on before the incident between between Jacob and Esau. Now, when Abraham died, he was 175 years old, and looking at just doing the counting, you could see that Ishmael and Isaac would of course been the ones to take care of his burial. But what's not mentioned here, if you look at the math, we're looking at Jacob and Esau as if you do the math, some things could be, and some scholars say that even Jacob and Esau could have been alive and have known Abraham. So just doing some of the math, I've not done the math. That's just from some of my studying myself. But you can do the math and see who was alive. In fact, some Bibles have charts that show who was alive when, and so forth. But what I'm getting at is this: if Jacob and Esau did know Abraham and did hear the stories of Abraham's lying to Pharaoh, and then Isaac lies to Pharaoh, the sin that they committed by this simple lie does not get unnoticed, or let me say this, unrepeated by what goes on between their sons. We see a lot of trickery going on. And so let's just start right here with the deception that goes on between Jacob and Esau. And it starts right here. Well, actually, it started when they were in the womb, and the angel or the Lord talked to Rebekah about this. But the older shall serve the younger. One people shall be stronger than the other. Well, let's just look at where all this started. Now, Esau has gone out into the field. Jacob was a man of the tents, apparently, a good cook. He cooked a stew. Esau comes in. He's hungry. He's weary. Now, what would have been the righteous thing to do, we know now, of course, and they knew then, would have been to feed his hungry brother, as we know we should do. But instead of feeding him, he makes a very, very strong deal with him. Sell me your birthright. And Esau says, look, I'm about to die, so what's my birthright to me? And Jacob makes him swear to it. And so he swears to it. Very foolish of Esau to do this, because it's like, was Jacob the only one he could have gotten food from? Was this the only person cooking? Was there nowhere else he could get? Could he not stand up and say, I can't do that? that the way it's supposed to be is I'm supposed to get my birthright, but he despised it. We see in verse 34. Esau despised his birthright. And so he ate it. He swore to him. He ate and sold it. Now, it's very obvious that they didn't tell Isaac about this. Funny how we do things and don't tell our parents, right? Ever done that? Well, this little deal didn't get to Isaac, it seems like, because we're going to skip over now chapter 26 because that's the story of Isaac and Abimelech. But we're going to go to chapter 27. So turn with me to Genesis chapter 27. And in this chapter, we open with Isaac being old. And Isaac's eyes were so dim that he could not see. So what I want to do now is read Genesis chapter 27, and I want us to make some comments on this. So, and now I'm back on my screen with the chat, so let me keep up. Oh, Elizabeth is here. Hi, Elizabeth. Glad you're here. And Anna says, was he really going to die, or was he being dramatic? That's a good question. Was Esau really going to die here? Or was he just being, oh, I'm going to die, and if I don't get this, I don't know. I don't know exactly. I know that it wasn't so bad that he had to do it, because it says he despised his birthright. He could have been hunt and not have enough, but then that can happen to anybody. Go out and hunt and come back and be hungry. He might have thought that he would be able to eat what he caught and did not catch anything, and so here he comes in hungry. He could have eaten everything or stayed out longer or been foolish like the prodigal son and stayed out longer than he needed to. But either way, there's no doubt that the Bible, in both the Old Testament and the New Testament, places the greater blame for what happened here upon Esau. Now, there's something very bad with what Jacob did too. He knew his brother's weakness. He seems to have calculated this. He seems to have been at the right place at the right time, mercilessly making his brother swear away his birthright. And everything here that his brother does, it's really sickening that this should happen. We have to remember, this was not a poor family. These are still very wealthy individuals. And Esau should have been the one to get this great wealth that they had. You can even look back when Isaac marries Rebekah at the gold and the gifts that they give for a dowry, I guess you could say. I don't know if that's the right word or not, for when a man gives to, no, I know it's not the right word, but anyway, it was a gift. The way that he gives gifts that are gold, very, very wealthy family. And they had enough that Esau would have been well cared for his whole life. He despised all these blessings that God gave to him. Now, I'm going to go and see. I want to look at some more of this. So, but that's a good question. Was he being dramatic, or was he? Jason said he's been so hungry he could eat a wagon wheel. You talking about a real wagon wheel? I wonder, we used to have there was a cracker thing we used to eat called a wagon wheel. I remember those too. But yeah, people say I'm so hungry I could eat a horse. But either way, Esau despised his birthright. Jacob took advantage of him. And this is just the beginning of all the trickery. This is just the beginning. Okay, Jesus went for 40 days without dying, right? Was this miraculous or human? Actually, I have read that that is possible. Moses went for 40 days as well. And Jesus fasted for 40 days. The thing is, when you fast, when you fast, you do without food, but you don't do without water. You couldn't live that long without water. But when you fast, you you don't eat, but you do drink. And I have a book, Cookie. I bet you would like. Not that I know where it is, of course, but I do have a book on fasting. It's called Fasting the Perfect Diet, I believe is the name of it. And it is a doctor who decided to research the fasting that went on in the Bible and see what it would do. And it was a very, very interesting book. I need to find that, and I need to get that. I need to get that author. In fact, I might could Google it right quick before we leave. But Emily says Esau was walking. That is true. So maybe not quite at the point of death, but you know how it is. We would all be, and look at this, quote unquote, starving to death if we went a day without food. So we do make different statements like that. And I'm sorry, I'm seeing this in the, I don't know if y'all can see the Ninja Turtle thing or not, but I'm turning that off. Okay. So anyway, yeah, he, he was he was justifiable in his own eyes, I guess, for despising his birthright. There again, Jacob wasn't totally innocent here. You know, two people can be wrong. Two people can do wrong to each other too. Now I want to look at what happens next. Now, so I'm going to read chapter 27 of Genesis. So let's all look to that right now. And let's move along to some more things that happened. Now it came to pass when Isaac was old and his eyes were so dim that he could not see, that he called Esau his older son and said to him, My son. And he answered him, Here I am. Then he said, Behold, now I am old. I do not know the day of my death. Now therefore, please take your weapons, your quiver and your bow, and go out to the field and hunt game for me, and make me savory food such as I love, and bring it to me that I may eat, that my soul may bless you before I die. Now Rebekah was listening when Isaac spoke to Esau his son. And Esau went to the field to hunt game and to bring it. So Rebekah spoke to Jacob her son, saying, Indeed, I heard your father speak to Esau your brother, saying, Bring me game and make savory food for me, that I may eat it and bless you in the presence of the Lord before my death. Now therefore, my son, obey my voice according to what I command you. Go now to the flock and bring me from there 2 choice kids of the goats, and I will make savory food from them for your father, such as he loves. Then you shall take it to your father, that he may eat it, and that he may bless you before his death. And Jacob said to Rebekah his mother, Look, Esau my brother is a hairy man, and I am a smooth-skinned man. Perhaps my father will feel me, and I shall seem to be a deceiver to him, and I shall bring a curse on myself and not a blessing. But his mother said to him, Let your curse be on me, my son. Only obey my voice and go, get them for me. And he went and got them and brought them to his mother, and his mother made savory food, such as his father loved. Then Rebekah took the choice clothes of her elder son Esau, which were with her in the house, and put them on Jacob, her younger son. And she put the skins of the kids of the goats on his hands and on the smooth part of his neck. Then she gave the savory food and the bread which she had prepared into the hand of her son Jacob. So he went to his father and said, My father. And he said, Here I am. Who are you, my son? So let's stop right there and recap what has gone on in this scene. Isaac is old. He is so blind, he cannot see. He tells Esau, I don't know when I'm going to die, but apparently Isaac felt like it was soon. So he wants to give his son the blessing. We cannot stress enough what a big deal this was to them. This was, I guess it's kind of like today's reading of the will, except it was done before the person died. And the blessing would be given to whomever it was supposed to go to, usually to the oldest son. And here's what he says to do. He wants him to cook for him. And by the way, this whole family had to have been some good cooks. We'll look at why more of that in just a minute. But he said, make me savory food such as I love and bring it to me that I may eat, that my soul may bless you before I die. Now, while he's telling him to do this, here, here comes the deception. First off, once again, Esau does not mention this deal he made with Jacob back at the stew pot. And if Esau were honest, Esau would have at that time said, but Father, let me tell you what I did. But no, Esau goes and he plays it as if it didn't happen. So Esau didn't keep his end of the deal with the stew, with the deal made back when Jacob was cooking the lentils. Now, not only that, but verse 5 tells us Rebecca, that snoop, was listening in. She was listening when Isaac spoke to Esau. His son wasn't any of her business. She was listening. And so soon as Esau leaves, she goes to Jacob and she has a plan, a wicked plan. And she said, listen, I heard your father tell Esau to bring savory food and bless you. Now, I want you to do what I tell you to. Now, here we have, and I've looked at some commentaries on this, and we have several disagreements as to was Rebecca right, was Rebecca wrong, was Isaac right, and was Isaac wrong. Some people believe that Isaac was wrong because of the prophecy the Lord gave to Rebecca. Nowhere do I find that Rebecca ever told Isaac what the Lord said to her, but Isaac is said of in Hebrews 11 that he does all of this by faith. I personally don't believe Isaac was being disobedient, but if Rebecca told him that the younger would serve the older, I don't see in that, and this is just with my few years of Bible study on the subject. I'm not the guru know all, but I don't see where Isaac could have known, or Isaac could have known that it was talking about the birthright, even looking at what the Lord said to uh, Rebecca. However, we do know that Isaac did all of this in faith. By faith, he gives Jacob this blessing. And looking at that, what we see fixing to happen, it's easy to say, well, by faith, he blessed the wrong kid. And yes, that's true too. By faith, he did go and he thought in his mind, his faith was he was blessing Esau. But he did not undo it when he found out what the trick was. Now, that's getting ahead of where we are in the story. But let's go with what she tells Jacob to do. And this is bring her a goat, a kid goat, and she's going to cook. Now, during this whole time, Well, I said this family was full of good cooks. At no time do we read Isaac suspecting that the food was not what he had ordered. Rebecca could cook goat to make it taste like deer. Now, to me, that's a good cook. Someone cooks something, and now sometimes people have served me chili or something, and I think it's beef, and they say, "Oh, well, it's deer," and those two are easy to really confuse with each other. She cooked goat meat and made it taste like deer meat, made it taste wild, the savory food, such as he loves. So Rebecca was a good cook. Jacob was a good cook. The very cook that Isaac wanted was Esau. So apparently Esau could cook because he wanted him not only to catch it, but to cook it. So, or maybe he had access to a good cook. I don't know. But either way, Rebecca plans to disguise Jacob as Esau and go in there and make Isaac bless him because Isaac cannot see. Oh, how she took advantage of her husband in his older days. And Jacob plays a part of this too. Jacob doesn't say in verse 11, now look, mother, this is wrong. We should not lie. Jacob's son Joseph was better than him because when when Potiphar's wife cast longing eyes upon him and said, lie with me, Joseph said, how can I do this and sin against God? But that's Jacob's son. But Jacob, Jacob says, look, I'm going to get caught, because Esau is hairy. I'm smooth skinned. And I'm going to tell you something. For him to be so hairy that he wears the hide of a goat with the fur of a goat, and his father be tricked. Esau was apparently a very hairy person because he was so hairy that the fur of a goat deceived him. She put it on his neck, she put it on his arms, everywhere that could be touched, apparently. If Isaac grabbed Jacob's neck and pulled Jacob close to him, he would be thinking he was touching Esau. Esau was that hairy. Well, he was born a hairy baby and stayed hairy. Apparently, his whole life, it appears. But so she says something in verse 13 when Jacob says, I'm going to get a curse instead of a blessing. Let your curse be on me, Rebecca says. Only obey my voice and go get them for me. Now, he does what his mother says. And she cooks. And she gets Esau's clothing and puts the clothing on Jacob. And Jacob wears his clothing. She has this plotted out. She's a good schemer. Because what if he grabs and smells of the clothing? And we know that he does. And so she took the choice clothes of her son Esau, which were with her in the house. Why they were with her in the house, we do not know. His clothes were with her. They were in the house. And she puts them on Jacob. She puts the skins on him. She gets the food. She gets bread. And he goes into his father well prepared to deceive. All right. Look at verse 18, verses following. So he went to his father and said, my father. And he said, here I am. Who are you, my son? Jacob said to his father, I am Esau, your firstborn. I have done just as you told me. Please arise, sit and eat of my game, that your soul may bless me. But Isaac said to his son, how is it that you have found it so quickly, my son? And he said, because the Lord your God brought it to me. Isaac said to Jacob, please come near that I may feel you, my son, whether you are really my son Esau or not. So Jacob went near to Isaac his father, and he felt him and said, the voice is Jacob's voice, but the hands are the hands of Esau. And he did not recognize him because his hands were hairy like his brother Esau's hands. So he blessed him. Then he said, "Are you really my son Esau?" He said, "I am." He said, "Bring it near to me, and I will eat of my son's game, so that my soul may bless you." So he brought it near to him, and he ate, and he brought him wine, and he drank. Then his father Isaac said to him, "Come near and kiss me, my son." And he came near and kissed him, and he smelled the smell of his clothing and blessed him and said, "Surely the smell of my son is like the smell of the field which the Lord has blessed. Therefore may God give you of the dew of heaven, of the fatness of the earth, and plenty of grain and wine. Let people serve you and nations bow down to you. Be master over your brethren, and let your mother's sons bow down to you. Cursed be everyone who curses you, and blessed be those who bless you." Now it happened as soon as Isaac had finished blessing Jacob, and Jacob had scarcely gone out of the presence of Isaac his father, that Esau his brother came in from his hunting. Right, so let's stop right there and let's look at what has just happened. Okay, he goes through with it and he is successful. Though Isaac is suspicious at first, he is very successful. Now, I want you to look at the sins that the deception that uh they went into. Okay. Well, first off, Rebecca killed two kids of the goat, made the savory meat, put Esau's clothes on Jacob, put the skins on Jacob's hands and neck. But look at all what Jacob did. He said, "I am Esau, thy firstborn, your firstborn." And even when he asked him, "Are you sure you're Esau's?" We would say it that way today. He said, "I am." Then he said, "I have done what you wanted me to do." Well, he didn't do it. That was a lie. Esau's out there doing it as they spoke. And he asked him, why'd you do it so quickly? How did this happen so fast? I just sent you. And he said, "Oh," and look at what he says. He even mocks, and we'll see Esau later on as a very irreligious person who does not care for the ways of God. In so many ways, Esau did not care for God. He did not treat God with respect. He gave no regard to God. And Esau would have said, "The Lord your God brought it to me." And it's almost as if Jacob is copying this to Isaac. "The Lord your God brought it to me." Well, that was a lie. The Lord your God didn't bring it to me. His mother did. And it looks like he's even copying Esau's irreligion here. In his deception, he has his get up that his mother makes for him, his hairy hands and neck and arms, and his brother's clothes. Again, he asked him, "Are you my very son? You my son Esau?" He says it again. He is. And the smell here, the smell of the field. Jacob only had one suspicion, one indication. I'm sorry. Isaac only had one suspicion or one indication that Jacob was lying to him, that he couldn't fit this piece of the puzzle together was the sound of the voice. His eyes were gone, but his hearing was not. And we can see how he's puzzled. But even here, we see what could we have done. We look back, and I know we say hindsight's 2020, and we look back, what could Isaac have done to prevent this deception? Well, maybe call for the other brother. Okay, if you're Esau, let me call Jacob in here. But he swallowed the deception hook, line, hook, line, and sinker, as we say. And he swallowed it whole, and he was deceived, and he went to uh, he went, or he didn't go very far. I was going to say he went to his grave deceived. That was Jacob, who went so far with Joseph's deception. But there again, you see deception being a key part of this family. And here he blesses him. He gives him this, I don't know how to say it, but untake backable, unretractable blessing that he wants God to give him the due of heaven and let the mother's sons bow down to you. Now, here is where some of the scholars say if Isaac knew that Jacob was supposed to be over Esau, he was being disobedient. And if again, Isaac knew this, because he gives the blessing from God to Jacob. May God give the fatness of the earth, plenty of grain and wine. Nations bow down to you. All of these, cursed be those who curse you, blessed be those who bless you, and all of these things. And looking at this, he'd scarcely left his father, Jacob did, when Esau comes in. And Esau hadn't had a long hunt. But here again, I said the cooks in this family, he had also made savory food, brought it to his father, and said to his father, let my father arise and eat of his son's game, that your soul may bless me. How, and here again, Esau's, not remembering a deal he made with Jacob, foolish deal, but a deal yet that he made. He didn't keep his own word to his own hurt, as the psalmist later will say. But Isaac is perplexed. Who are you? He said, I'm your firstborn, your son, Esau. Let's just read this. Let's go on and read verse 30 and following. Now it happened as soon as Isaac had finished blessing Jacob, and Jacob had scarcely gone out from the presence of Isaac his father, that Esau his brother came in from his hunting. He also had made savory food and brought it to his father, and said to his father, let my father arise and eat of his son's game, that your soul may bless me. And his father Isaac said to him, who are you? So he said, I'm your son, your firstborn Esau. Then Isaac trembled exceedingly and said, who? Where's the one who hunted game and brought it to me? I ate all of it before you came, and I have blessed him, and indeed he shall be blessed. When Esau heard the words of his father, he cried with an exceedingly great and bitter cry, and said to his father, bless me, me also, oh my father. But he said, your brother came with deceit and has taken away your blessing. And Esau said, is he not rightly named Jacob? For he has supplanted me these 2 times. He took away my birthright. Now look, he's taken away my blessing. And he said, have you not reserved a blessing for me? Then Isaac answered and said to Esau, indeed, I have made him your master, and all his brethren I have given to him as servants. With grain and wine I have sustained him. What shall I do now for you, my son? And Esau said to his father, have you only one blessing, my father? Bless me, me also, O my father. And Esau lifted up his voice and wept. Then Isaac his father answered and said to him, behold, your dwelling shall be of the fatness of the earth and of the dew of heaven from above. By your sword you shall live, and you shall serve your brother. And it shall come to pass when you become restless, that you shall break his yoke from your neck. So let's just look at what happens. This, by faith, Isaac blesses Jacob, we're told in Hebrews 11. But when Esau came in, well, you almost just feel sorry for Esau. And yet, it's too late. Why was he thinking of this? Again, I say back at the stew pot when he sold his birthright, and they are making a difference between the birthright and the blessing, and it was a birthright getting the inheritance, apparently the blessing, what was given to him from his father, and he bitterly cries, but it's too late. And as they said, he despised it back then when he didn't need it, and now he needs it. And Esau says, my brother, he's a deceiver. Is he rightfully named Jacob, supplanter, deceiver? He's done it these 2 times. Now he decides to tell Isaac, he took away my birthright. And now he's taken away my blessing. Now, you wonder what Isaac thought then. He took away your birthright. Did Isaac know? We don't know what Isaac knew again. But Isaac said, I'm sorry. Basically, what's done is done. I've made him your master. What can I do now for you? And he says, do you not have any type of blessing left? And his loving father Isaac does give him the best that he can. You're going to dwell of the fatness of the earth and the dew. By your sword you shall live. Now, by your sword you shall live. We could interpret that too. By your sword you shall live, to be in army with, in war with other people as his descendants were. Also, fighting and killing animals. I don't know how much the sword was used in that, but it was part of his blessing nonetheless. And this part didn't change. You shall serve your brother. But look what he does. He says, it will come to pass that you're going to break his yoke from your neck. Yeah, you're going to serve him a while. And we'll see this happening between the nations of Edom and Israel. Now, Edom did get loose from the chains of bondage of Israel, but they acted so ugly about it, God allowed them to be destroyed too. That's a whole nother lesson. But we see that he hated his brother because of this. Now let's look at verse 41 to the end, verses 41 to the end of the chapter. So Esau hated Jacob because of the blessing with which his father blessed him, and Esau said in his heart, the days of mourning for my father are at hand. Then I will kill my brother Jacob. The words of Esau, her older son, were told to Rebekah. So she sent and called Jacob, her younger son, and said to him, surely your brother comforts himself concerning you by intending to kill you. Now therefore, my son, obey my voice. Arise, flee to my brother Laban in Haran, and stay with him a few days until your brother's fury turns away, until your brother's anger turns away from you, and he forgets what you have done to him. Then I will send and bring you from there. Why should I be bereaved also of you both in one day? Rebekah said to Isaac, I am weary of my life because of the daughters of Heth. If Jacob takes a wife of the daughters of Heth, like these who are the daughters of the land, what good will my life be to me? Very interesting verse, but needs to be there nonetheless. Let's go to. So basically, Esau's going to kill Jacob. His father's fixing to die. He's not going to do it while his father is alive. But when his father dies and doesn't know, he's going to, and he's apparently strong enough. He's, like I say, a man of the outdoors, more athletic, more physically strong, you would think, than his brother. And his brother gets there, but at this point, he's a man who dwells in tents. We'll see later where his brother works outside and does things and even wrestles an angel, but that's later on down the road. But at this time, Rebekah fears that Esau can do it because she tells Jacob, you need to run away and you need to go now. You need to go. And so her trick, her deception that he listened to now has her telling Jacob, you've got to leave. But now she says, stay with him a few days until your brother's fury turns away. Well, we know what that turned into. It wasn't a few days, it was 14 years. We'll also see Jacob getting paid back what he does here because Laban, who's also a tricky person, Rebecca's brother, Laban, also a tricky person, deceives Jacob over and over and over again. He paid for this trick, let me tell you. And as far as we know, and this is the sad thing, as far as we can tell, let's go back up in chapter 25 to verse 30. It happened as soon as Isaac had finished blessing Jacob, and Jacob has scarcely gone out from the presence of Isaac his father. The last memory, as far as we can tell, the last memory Jacob has of his father is of him tricking him, deceiving him. As far as we can tell. I mean, what's he going to do? Go in there and say, "Hey, Dad, I got to go because I just," he's not going to face his father after that. Really? Look at that. The last memory, most likely, in all likeness, in all probability, the last time he sees his father is him tricking him, having to get out from there so quick, never knowing that's the last time he would see his father alive. Well, that's what happens when we deceive. Someone has aptly said, "Oh, the tangled web we weave when at first we practice to deceive." I believe is the way it goes. Oh, what a tangled web we weave when at first we practice to deceive. Now, what a sad story. And yet, when Isaac sees that Jacob gets this blessing, and it's funny that here in Genesis, by faith, he blessed Jacob. By his faith was that he was thinking he was blessing Esau, but by faith, he blessed Jacob. And by faith, he kept that blessing. He did not undo it. And it could be that he did know that the older would serve the younger. But it's such a tragic story. It's such a sad story, and it's such a story of deceit and lies and trickery and all kinds of bad schemings going on that they do to each other. And Cookie says he didn't get to see Rebecca again either, did he? I don't know that he did. That's a very good question. Probably was the last time he saw her. That's a good point too. Probably the last time he saw his father and his mother. Well, we could look and see, but I think that's correct. He listened to her, and her schemings, her little plot, got her and her son that she loves. And maybe that was a good punishment for her, that she didn't get to see him, because this was all her, not all of it, but the mastermind of it was her doings. And the blessing, just the results of this one deception that they did, the emotional hurt. Isaac, when he said, "Who are you?" Well, when it dawns on Isaac what he has done, what a tremendous flood of emotions had to have hit him, and how he was deceived in his own son. And to hear his older son weep and lift up his voice like that, a grown man just bawling bitterly, he bawled. And Jacob got for himself a name, all right. Is he not rightly named Jacob? That's what Esau says. He supplanted me these 2 times. Then he got a lesser blessing. And afterwards, we have hatred. Now, we will see that when the 2 brothers reunite years later, that God, and this is how good God is, even though Esau was not that good of a person, really, God blessed Esau so much that Esau was like, he is so blessed that, it's like, well, I didn't get my father's wealth, but so what? Look at all these blessings I have. And that's basically what he tells Jacob. Now, after Jacob pulled this stunt, you're going to see when they meet again, and Jacob has, it's almost laughable. Jacob has this huge company of people, and he's way at the back. He's he's not wanting to face his brother. And then he puts Rachel way at the back, and he goes out and he meets his brother, and he's prepared to have a fight with him, maybe get killed there, but his brother forgives him. For all the bad things we say about Esau, we need to remember that Esau forgave his brother. A friend of mine told me that they went to a funeral. It was a sad funeral of two little boys that had passed away. And the preacher said, and they were brothers, by the way. It's difficult to preach a funeral of two brothers because when you look at the Bible and brothers, it's hard to find brothers who get along because so many times brothers don't get along in the Bible. Can you think of any other brothers who did not get along like Jacob and Esau? So why don't we end with this little trivia question? Can you think of any other brothers who did not get along? Because that was a true statement to have to do a funeral of two brothers and try to find an example in the Bible of two brothers. All right, Cookie, Cain and Abel. Absolutely. Very good example. We think of any more brothers who didn't get along with each other? There are some more. Cain and Abel, the first two brothers, didn't get along, did they? Or Cain killed his brother. Can we think of any more? Because I've got some. All right, there we go. Joseph and his brothers with the coat of many colors. Absolutely. There we go. All right. Who else could we think of who didn't get along with his brothers? In fact, Joseph's brothers sold him. Cain killed his brother. Joseph's brothers sold him. We have all this with Jacob and Esau. David's sons. Yes. When David goes to bring lunch to his brothers, and Goliath is out there spouting off his mouth, there's David, and his brothers say, "You just came out here to see the battle. You just want to come see a fight, didn't you?" And he said, "Well, what did I do? I just did what Dad told me to do." David and his brothers. And so a lot of times we see so many brothers who didn't get along. Even Jesus's own brothers didn't believe him at one time. And James and John, if you remember, they had a nickname. They were called the Sons of Thunder. Now, with a name like that, do you think they always got along with each other? That's just a personal opinion. We'll have to put that where it is. But with names like Sons of Thunder, I bet those two tied into it quite a bit. I would think so with a name like that. But I think you have something there between Gideon and his brothers, if I'm not mistaken. Don't quote me on that. I have to look that up. But you do see a lot of brothers in the Bible who do not get along with each other. And Jacob and Esau are prime examples of this. And they had to separate. Sometimes that's a good thing for brothers to do. And later on, though, we do see Esau. We got to give Esau credit where credit is due. Esau finally forgave his brother. And when they reunited and everything was okay, Esau forgave his brother. And things were back. But during the meantime, it was a good thing for Jacob to, as the Western saying goes, get out of Dodge. It was a good time for Jacob to leave. And he does go. And let me tell you, just read on, you'll see that he got paid back. He really got paid back for this little stunt he pulled, him and his mother pulled. And Rebecca didn't, she said, I don't want to lose both of you in the same day. Well, if Esau had killed Jacob and Esau would have been executed, that would have been what would have happened. And she didn't want to, if she lost Isaac and then Jacob, can you imagine how that would be for a woman of this day and time? Her husband dies, then her two sons die. It was really, I guess, the best plan B she could come up with. But now that we've done this, I want to say thank you for joining our broadcast today. And I want to say that I appreciate your questions and looking at this with us. We'll continue in Hebrews chapter 11 next week and look going on down the genealogy. And Cookie says, please remember me in your prayers tonight. Tomorrow I will have light surgery, having my port removed at 5:30 a.m. So Cookie has a very early surgery. So Cookie's got a very important day tomorrow. Please remember her. Also, please remember Paul Hatch. Paul was, I don't want to get the details of this wrong, but working on his car where someone had hit it, trying to pull a bumper back into place, and broke some bones in his back, actually. Cracked some bones in his back. And so let's remember Paul Hatch in our prayers as well. And remember all of those who are on our prayer list. Look at Dovertown Lifelines on Facebook. I appreciate everybody who joined in last night on the Google Meet. We discussed Acts chapter 2, the day of Pentecost, and how that was so important, is so important to us still today. And so let's remember all of these in our prayer requests, the prayer requests that we've been reading at church. Our next meeting, Lord willing, will be Sunday at 11 at the building. Again, if something different on that needs to happen, we'll let you know with the calling post. And I'm just thinking about how blessed we are with all this technology. We can get with each other through Google Meet, YouTube, calling post, lifelines on Facebook, and all of these things. People on their phones, on their televisions, on their computers, joining in. Thank you for joining us. And we will hopefully see you again. If not Sunday morning at 11 at the building, Sunday afternoon at 2 o'clock here on this YouTube channel. May God bless you all and have a good week. Good night.